All right. Good day and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another Live the Fuel show. So this evening, I have, yet another new guest co-host for you. And this gentleman might know a few things from the fitness industry. I love his bio because he's got a good long bio, and we'll chunk it out tonight. But I love the fact that on his site, which is his name, patrigsby.com, he likes to sum it up in 5 power words. He's a father, he's a husband, he's an entrepreneur, coach, and author. And there's been some recent things happening in his family lifestyle that may even come in tonight's show as well, since we really are advocates for a healthy lifestyle. And I do appreciate it when our co-hosts are confident enough and willing enough to share some transparency. So I wanted to lay that into the intro to make sure you guys listen in and make sure you get the whole show tonight. So without further ado, our latest new guest co-host tonight, Pat Rigsby, sir. Welcome to the show.
Well, hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. Really looking forward to this.
Yeah, so I love the fact that thank you for shortening up your bio, because there is a lot going on with you. So if I try to dissertate all of that, I'm like, yeah, no. And I get all kinds of bios sent to me, and I will say, I think you came to me through Interview Valet. They do a great job, summing things up, doing little one-pagers. So shout out to them, great team. I've had Tom on the show; he's awesome. And I don't know how long you've been working with them. So has that been a newer relationship for you?
It's probably been 6 months or so, and yeah, they're outstanding.
Awesome. Yeah. And apparently there's other agencies that does this now. So podcasting has gotten that established after all these years, and now people are helping podcasters connect with new people. So I was like, hey, you want to send me people? That's great. Usually my team has had to hunt people down for the first 2 years. Now it's made my life a lot easier.
Yeah, they solved a big problem, I think.
Yeah. So is your bio still up to date? Or are you a fresh 46 still?
Yeah. I mean, technically it's up to date. I got about a month and a half before 47. So.
All right. Well, I turned 41 in September, so we're close, So my now wife, as of a couple weeks ago, calls me the old guy, and I'm like, I was like, if age was defined by a number, then we'd have a serious problem, because I'm pretty damn healthy and fit. So, and I have a feeling you believe in that commitment as well.
Yeah, it's probably led me down an interesting career path. I was being really excited about health and fitness and sports and everything else. So yeah, that's probably why the bio has some twists and turns to it.
Well, I mean, you've definitely gotten the right influence out there. I mean, you've gotten connected with, you're a best-selling author, right? Let's go right there. Because I'm a new upcoming author. I've been published in a magazine a few times, and now I'm finishing a book, my first book. So I think that's the hardest part, maybe, is getting the first one out there.
Oh, yeah, the first one's so much worse than all the rest.
Why?
Sure. like anything, like that daunting, that overwhelm that you get, because it's this bucket list type item or whatever else, but then after that it's kind of old news, right? So I'm sure that if any of my English teachers or English professors in college would had any idea that I might write a book, or I've written a daily email newsletter for about 14 and a half years without missing a day. If they would have thought that writing was a big part of my life, they would have probably laughed me out of the room. So, yeah.
Okay. I have people who commend me for publishing 2 podcasts a week, which is my average, right? You've been doing a daily newsletter.
Yeah.
For 14 and a half years.
Yep.
I'm wearing a shirt that says mic drop, where I feel like I need to virtually hand that to you through the camera right now, because you can just drop the mic on that. That is commitment, sir. Wow.
It's just, let's get one day in the books and then the next, and then it gets to be this thing where it's like, well, I can't do it because I can't stop, because then, I'm starting from email 1. So
I guess we could bring it's become more of a favorite quote in the past probably 6 to 12 months in the show. It just started naturally clicking because of my fitness background, but it's that classic statement of putting in the reps. Right. And obviously that's what you did. Like, okay, you just got the ball rolling, you started putting in the reps, and then it got easier. And then you just didn't want to stop that flow.
Yeah. That's it. It's being able to kind of check it off and say, I won today, and move on to the next one.
Oh, then you're motivating me, sir, because I was able to write the book faster than it was to take it, because I have to finish at least my own edits
No.
before I can have somebody else edit it. And that's my slowest part now. It's like I banged out the book, and now it's just finishing the darn editing. And it's like, I hate this part.
Yeah, we're always kind of our own worst critic in that kind of world. So I'm sure that you've done good work there, and knock it out and hand it off to somebody else.
Well, I mean, enough about me. You've had 6 books, right? So 6 best-selling, right?
Yeah,
Or
I've authored or co-authored 16 now.
oh, let's throw the co-authoring in. Okay.
Yeah, so there have been some fun collaborative type projects that I've done, and then a number of books on my own. And it's just been, after the first one, it's just gotten a lot more comfortable. Is just this, okay, I'm putting something out there that's kind of this asset that somebody can benefit from a lot longer than a Facebook Live or something like that, right? And so, um, yeah, I mean, so the first one was kind of a punch in the gut, because you're like, oh, wait a minute, now I want to go back and change this thing that I wrote towards the beginning, and you go through it, and then finally you're at peace with the fact that, like, look, I mean, this is good, and I'm proud of it, and time to hand it off and on to the next thing.
Well, I've had past co-hosts on the show that have gone ahead and say, you know what, you got to reach a point where it's good enough. You get it out there, you get the feedback. And then if it's really, really powerful and people have a lot of questions coming from it, then you do a second release, which a few people have. Like they've shipped me second releases of their books only 2 years after putting out the first one. And it's done well. So I guess it comes down to your point, right? It's like, you just got to be happy with that first edition, get it out there and see how it does.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things, like, for the entrepreneurial people who might be listening in, it's one of the biggest things that I've probably learned through the 15 plus years I've been on the business side of all this is, I mean, if you're waiting around for perfect, it's not coming. So you might as well get something out there and make an impact, because that's the only way that it's going to work, is once you get, you ship it and people can go benefit from it.
Well, you could definitely speak to this. The listeners better be locking this in, because, again, pulling from your bio, you've literally sold as many as 116 franchises in a single year, and copywriter for over $10 million in online sales. Is that accurate? Or more?
Probably. I mean, the online sales, that would have been, I mean, it's probably 2 or 3 times that, well, probably 3 times that much. But,
Wow.
It gets back to that, like, if there's something valuable, then put it out there and get it in people's hands, because hoarding all that stuff to ourselves doesn't help anybody.
Well, and when you said all that, it just made me think of there's a famous quote online now, thanks to Reed, the founder of LinkedIn, since he sold, obviously, LinkedIn. But one of his favorite quotes is, if you're not embarrassed by the first product that you put out there, you waited too long. Like, yeah. It's like, you got to get it out there. You have to learn from it. And to your point, there's no such thing as perfection. There's always going to be something potentially wrong, or could have been improved, or could have been tweaked. And then you get to this phase of paralysis by analysis, right? So it's like, put up or shut up, man. Get it out there.
Yeah, and I think we've got all the, so many people that have great things to share, and they hold off, waiting to fine tune it a little bit more, and then they miss out on all the people they could have impacted, all the difference they could have made. And what's great about it is, the market's going to tell you how to improve it. Like, you sitting there trying to figure out how to improve it yourself, I mean, you've got kind of a low ceiling there, right? Like, there's only, like, a group of 1 here working on it, but the market's going to tell you what to fix, how to tweak things, how to improve. So I'm a fan of, get it out there and let them tell you how to make it better.
I tell people that with marketing and social media, for example, it's like, oh, well, I need to hire a strategist. I'm like, okay, well, I'm a strategist technically, right? So I was like, you do realize, though, that part of the strategy is putting the content up there and seeing how it performs. I mean, I don't care who you talk to. Most social media is a giant guessing game.
Yeah.
There's only so much you could put a strategy to.
And it's great now because we get such quick feedback. I mean, marketing, when I would have started into the business world, if you're going to do more direct mail or something, I mean, you're spending a lot of money and waiting a pretty significant amount of time, weeks, to get enough data, enough feedback to know how to tweak and improve. Now, I mean, we can run an ad or post something on social media and know like that day. So yeah, it's an exciting time to be in the business world.
So back to your power of 5 here, right? You have the father, the husband, the entrepreneur, the coach, the author. So it's exciting to be in this. I like where you hit on this, right? Because the marketing is so much faster nowadays. You get the feedback, you can tweak and move quicker. So compared to when you started, right, to where you are today, has your love of speaking about this or writing about this, has that shifted because of those changes? Like, do you still like to niche more to the fitness side versus the business side? Is there any part of that, or is it always still a marriage?
Yeah, it's all kind of interwoven. Before, and I don't know that it made the bio there that you have or not, I was a college baseball coach before I got into the business world.
Yeah, that was Shawnee, right?
Yep. So I was
23, by the way.
Yeah. So I got to screw up a lot in my 20s and figure stuff out. So, but it was kind of the same thing there. I love baseball, but the recruiting was business, right? It was marketing, selling. And so I just love that side of it too, trying to find ways to go out and connect with better prospects than my competition, to follow up, to get them to come on campus. And so, yeah, I think I've always been excited about the challenge and kind of commingling all those things.
Well, I love the fact that you're a past sports coach and you know your sales. And we got to pause on what you just dropped a golden nugget. I've been telling people for years, because I was guilty of this. I told myself I never wanted to get into sales because I didn't want to be the used cars sales guy, right? Sales had a bad stigma to it. And people were like, dude, but you're good at it. Like, it's just natural, right? You're good at communicating, you're interactive, and it's true. And then I finally embraced it. And then, people pay me to help them grow their business. But the point here is that it took me years to realize this, but it's like, guys, like, we're actually all experiencing sales and also dishing it out ourselves. It could go back to, if you guilty, accidentally sideswiping your mom's car when you were still learning to drive, when you tried to pulling into the garage because you secretly backed the car out and screwed around with it around the farm and then put it away in the garage. That was me. And then lied and said that, it must have happened when she was at the grocery store and somebody hit it with a shopping cart. Yeah, that was me. I was clearly selling her on a false story, which lasted for years, mind you. I eventually told the truth because I felt bad. But my point here is, like, you as a coach, right? Like, you've had to teach your athletes this, right? Like, guys, like, if you're trying to get to an advanced level of sports, right? Getting in high school to college to professional sports, or getting the job or getting into that better university, it's all interviews. It's all selling.
Yeah, I mean, all of it. And if we think about what we're doing on a daily basis in the fitness industry even, right? I mean, it's not enough to get somebody as a client. You've got to persuade them to stay on track, stay compliant, stay motivated. And you're essentially having to resell them over and over and over because, I mean, they've probably got decades of behavior that was pretty different from what you're asking them to adopt. So you're selling them on this constantly. So yeah, I mean, if we're not embracing selling and persuasion and everything else, we're missing out on so much of what we can accomplish and how much impact we can have.
I love that point because when I used to be a spinning instructor, there were like 5-6 years of that. To your point, I teach like the 5:30, 6 a.m. because I do that and then go into my corporate gig later. This is years ago. And you always had that occasional one or two, usually it's one person, it's not usually more than that, but there's always that one person, to your point, that has been so miswired. And that's the relation. The only way to rewire or improve that person's wiring mentally is through relationship building, which is part of the sales process. It's not going to happen on day one. You're not going to convince somebody that they're going to be able to sit through a whole spinning class for an hour and do everything other people's going to do. In the beginning, it's just convincing them, like, it's okay, man. Get on the bike. We'll make the class fit you. Don't worry. I'm the crazy nutball on the bike up front with a puddle of sweat under it. That's me. Don't worry about me. Focus on you. But that process has to go through comfort and relationship building. And that's something that I learned through, coaching sports and teaching that.
Yeah, for sure. And, I think that the sooner we embrace it, the better off we are for sure.
So do you find yourself to this day, like, what is your target audience nowadays? Like, are you still involving yourself a lot with down to the trainer level of some of your influence? Are you dealing more with the coaches or trainers who have become the entrepreneurs and they're trying to like massively grow their business or branch out and build franchises, for example, stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely predominantly business owners in the fitness landscape, but also health and sports performance. I've definitely preferred to kind of stay in that service-minded landscape rather than kind of branching out into just general business coaching. I've always liked the values that the people in the service fields kind of subscribe to, and they were just people I've enjoyed spending my time with and helping the most.
Now, is that like programs like Business Growth Accelerator, the Ideal Business Academy, those programs you have on your site?
Yep.
And actually, since we're talking about it, let's go ahead and for the video watchers here and do a little screen sharing, because that way I can at least back it up. So I'm on your coaching section of your site, actually. So, yeah. Which, by the way, love the Business Growth Accelerator. Makes perfect sense. A lot of small businesses don't know how to reach that point of acceleration. They're just trying to survive. And they're thinking about just survival, and they're never even considering getting to the acceleration point.
Yeah.
Happening a lot.
We see so much in the business world, I think, these guys that, they start off and they've got these dreams or hopes or this vision of what they want to do. And then before you know it, they're just being reactive, and it feels like they're kind of playing defense, and they're not out there pursuing the business they want to have. They're not going and bringing more clients in so they can scale. And next thing you know, they're working twice as hard for half as much as they probably were making in the job they had before they started a business.
Mm-hmm. I have to say, I'm passionate about the fitness industry with you. And I have seen it so much with just colleagues of mine. I'm big in the CrossFit space, and I'm also a CFL1 trainer, but I recently was offered part ownership in a box, and I was like, no, I'm good. One, my choice in businesses, I don't want to own brick and mortar businesses. I'm more virtual and online. That's just my choice. And I wanted to see my friends succeed without me. I was like, listen, I got your back. You want to do some consultations, you want to have some help, we'll work that way. But I'm not the right co-owner, because you're going to want me in the business day to day, and that's not what I'm looking for. And I see this often where amazing coaches and amazing trainers want to become their own business person, but they don't know squat about business. I'm sure you probably word it nicer in your trainings. How do you, I guess, help? Do you ever like just go right to them on that and just say, listen, guys, like, it's okay. It's okay. It's so common. You just don't know business. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, that's a big part of the conversation out of the gate. And I don't think there's any shame in that. I mean, they've been passionate about this one thing, be it fitness or health or sports performance. They've been passionate about really learning to become a specialist in this area. Well, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't expect somebody to be great in this one area and then all of a sudden have all these other things that they just kind of happen to be great at too. I mean, most of us, there's only so much bandwidth to have, and they've allocated it in this one spot. So my goal is to kind of help them not have to go through all the trial and error and not have to navigate all the bumps in the road and everything, and just kind of give them a plan of attack they can go execute based around the things they are good at and the things they are passionate about. And, I think it's worked out pretty well because it allows them to stay pretty close to what they consider their wheelhouse, but still do what they need to do from a business standpoint to, have the type of business that they set out to have when they started in the first place.
Yeah. Well, I think the other thing that has to be realized is anybody hearing this is there's a timeline here, right? It's okay. It's not going to happen overnight. Even working with you, it's not an overnight process to become a successful business owner, a successful entrepreneur. I'm sorry. It's painful sometimes to hear that, but it's true. I've had to learn that.
I mean, it's probably very much a cliche type thing, but anything worth having requires some investment and some perseverance, and that's good. I wouldn't want it to be just incredibly easy for somebody to have a business, because if it was, then, there's no real reward. You're not going to have the type of business that you have, or the type that I have, if anybody could just kind of snap their fingers and they arrive at that spot.
So on that thought, and I was looking at all your coaching, there was two other categories on here. There was Ideal Business Mastermind and Online Entrepreneur Mastermind. Yeah. So I was wondering, when I looked at that earlier, I was like, well, how does he differentiate that? Because some people hearing this today are like, well, if I'm a business owner, am I not an entrepreneur?
Well, so they're both entrepreneur, business owner centric. One, the ideal is for physical kind of brick and mortar businesses. Mm-hmm. And the online is for the people who are trying to scale through primarily online mechanisms, whether it's business to consumer or business to business, doing coaching or that sort of thing.
What if you got a hybrid model? A good friend of mine, he was our doctor of chiropractic at our CrossFit gym. He had his own practice, mobility docs. His father was a chiropractor for years. He had his own practice. They just merged everything and they just relocated out of our facility and got their own big facility, because they also started their own barbell clubs. They have a weightlifting community and everything. But the thing that he was smart about doing was, a few years ago, was start creating that online footprint and offering virtual coaching. So they actually had athletes going to major Olympic lifting competitions, and he was actually coaching them virtually, studying. They would submit videos back to him so he can analyze because you can't always be working together at the same time. And it's not a huge part of his business, but it's a substantial supporting component of it. So I'm just intrigued by that, because then obviously for somebody like him, he'd probably need to go through both programs, right? Because there's two different platforms, so to speak, from brick and mortar versus online.
Yeah, and so much of it's just, where do you want to focus, right?
Okay.
I would say that, probably 80% of the people who do the online either still have a physical offline business or have just kind of graduated out of it, probably during the time we've had a working relationship.
Oh, interesting. So you find a lot of people do start morphing to the online footprint.
Yeah, I think that, one of the wonderful things about being an entrepreneur is there's no complacency there, right? Like, there's always the next thing that people want to get to. And, I think for some of these guys, they kind of feel like there's more opportunity in the online world, or the flexibility for the thing. Like, it's very easy for that person who's been coaching sessions at 5:30 in the morning and at 7:30 at night or whatever else to say, look, you know what? I want some flexibility in my lifestyle now. So they kind of move away from that. I mean, yeah, I work with a number of people who scale by adding locations or licensing or franchising. But yeah, I mean, there are probably more in this day and age that kind of prefer to scale with what I call a virtual second location, just adding an online component, or just saying, look, you know what, when my lease is up or whatever else, I'm just gonna move on, or I'm gonna sell and scale this other way.
I've promoted that for so long because obviously, as I hinted, I was not a fan of the brick and mortar. And again, I get it. If you want that strong local community, you can do that. And it's great to give a place for people to go to. But in the end, all I see is overhead costs. But I know other people that are also moving towards the online footprint, and because you now drop the localized limitations. I mean, you don't have to worry about, I can't attract the person from 1 hour away out of my market, especially in the CrossFit space, because a lot of CrossFit facilities are very localized, right? There's so many of them now. You have one, and then we have within a half an hour drive from me, I can get to 9 different CrossFit gyms in all directions. So we're fine.
So it's very much a survival of the fittest market there, where Darwinism at its finest, right? But I think that what you just alluded to is kind of how I arrived at the way that I took my business path. I had a couple offline locations and was very eager to scale, and then finally it was like, look, I'm already away a lot, and the clock doesn't stop ticking. You know, when my now 8-year-old turns 9, I don't get 8 back, right? Like, I'm still dad, but the kid at 9 or 10 or 11 is a little bit different, right? Different interests and just a different stage of life. And so it's like, I don't really want to be gone visiting 12 different locations or 15 different locations and never really being present at home. So I just kind of made a switch over time, which is probably better explained as an evolution.
I like the point on evolution because the last guy I was just recording with, he brought up a very similar point to what you're kind of getting to. And I want to try and use his words, but he's like, listen, you're not a true business owner. You're not a true entrepreneur until you've replaced yourself. He's like, if you're still required to be in the day-to-day and the business cannot work without you, he's like, then you're just another one of the grunts. He's like, I know that sounds aggressive, but he's like, his point is any good business, you're building a team, you're creating a way to replace yourself so you can step away whenever you need to. That's an interesting point. I mean, how do you talk about that?
I probably don't go quite as far with it. I get to this level where I feel like I want to play my best role. I want people to play their best role. I mean, they still have to add value somewhere. And so maybe that best role is just as a leader and you're empowering your team. But, I think that, the thing that people tend to use is their, I guess, Bible for this would be the E-Myth, right?
Oh, yes. E-Myth Revisited. Well, that's the one I read. So,
and it's great, but the whole thing that Michael Gerber talks about is, well, hey, you're supposed to be working on the business, not in the business. Well, as you well know, being a soon-to-be published author, right? There's nothing more grunt than writing a book, and the entire business model is built on these books. So even the guy that wrote the book saying, don't be in the business, there's a certain role that we all have to play in the business. I know in my case, I just don't do things in my business that I don't like. And that was a process to get to that. But if I don't like it, I'm not doing it. And
that's a great point. Like, I'm sorry, go ahead and finish up. I cut you off there for a second.
No, I think that there's no shame in you being the guy on the microphone here, for example, but you don't need to be the person editing. You don't need to be the person worrying about show notes. You don't need to be the person worrying about graphics. And so that's my goal with most of the people that I work with is whatever that role that you want to play is, whether it's traditional CEO or kind of star of the show, I'm trying to help people get to that spot.
Oh, I love your point on that because I do outsource about over half of that because like since day one of this show over 2.5 years ago, I've never edited a podcast episode. I don't know how. And right when I was launching the show, I downloaded the applications and I start studying the YouTube videos and I'm like, nope, I'm gonna go find somebody and hire them to do it. Like, nope. And people are like, you should know everything about your show. And I'm like, nope, I don't need to know that. I know I read the Strengths Finder 2.0 book. I'm a very big believer in it. It's like, I know what my strengths are. And I know I don't really do a ton of editing. We just we have a professional voiceover intro and an outro, and I don't edit mid-reel, but I don't want to worry about it. I just wanted to say, great, go ahead and take care of that. Send it back to me. I get final approval because I am the star of the show. It's my show. And I want to make sure I'm honoring my guest co-host, the co-stars of the show. So I always get final approval on the graphics and everything because I want to make sure it looks good when it goes up on the website. So that's what I care about. But to your point, right? I don't, these little things along the process, those are costing me time. What is my time worth to me? I'd rather pay somebody to do that. I know what my time's worth to me. So,
and it's not only your time, but it's your fulfillment from what you're doing. And if you get caught up having to be the guy doing all the editing and all the other stuff, all of a sudden the podcast gets to be a lot less fun for the host. And I'm just a big believer in doing the things that are not only my best financial ROI, but the place I just enjoy spending my time.
I can't tell you how many people have reached out that I've met, because I speak at a podcast conference every year now here on the Mid-Atlantic podcast here. And this year they're moving it to Atlantic City in September. And I'll be back speaking again this year. And I'll be talking about lifestyle. I think my topic's called lifestyle transparency or living a transparent lifestyle. Like, I'm all about honesty and transparency. I think it's so freeing. And I've never hid that about this show. Like, sorry guys, like I'm going to outsource the editing and all this stuff because it's not just, to your point, what the time is worth to me, but I want to make sure the show stays fun. I look forward to talking to influencers like you. I want to enjoy this part. If I got to sit here until midnight editing a podcast, I'm like, nah, I'm good. No, it's got to stay fun. And even the book, I hacked the book. I actually did not write one word of the book. I actually found a voice recognition app called Otter AI. It uses artificial intelligence. I put that sucker on my iPhone, and when I traveled on business, I would just voice transcribe a chapter. I figured out if I could speak for 15 minutes, I get a few thousand words. I was able to write my book within a month or two, and just doing it in my free time when I'm traveling. So now part of the editing problem is that I have to take all that voice transcription and make it more structured. So it added more time to the editing timeline, but I didn't want to, I guess, lose the passion for writing the book, because the book is going to be a book that gives back. I'm actually going to donate the proceeds. So I wanted to make sure, to your point, right, that it stayed fun, and I wanted to actually pull this off. So, and do you see people doing that in their businesses though? Forgetting that important point.
I think that by and large, people just kind of do what they've always done, right? Like, so as a startup, we're conditioned that, okay, you've got to hustle, you've got to do everything, you're the jack of all trades, and there's nothing wrong with that. We've all been there. I mean, the day after I got married, so you're talking about coming off just getting married and everything else. The day after I got married, my wife and I were back painting a gym before grand opening. And so, I mean, we've all been in that spot, but if you're still behaving like a startup 5 years in, you're doing it wrong.
I like that point. So, I mean, before people jump into your programs, do you end up talking to them about a little bit? Is there a lot of your people coming in? Did they get like an initial consultation? Do you end up talking to them about these healthy lifestyle balances? Because that's something I definitely want to make sure comes up on today's show, because you hinted about something going on in your family recently, and you just did a great job reminding us about what is your time worth? How are you balancing your life? Are you still living like a startup 5 years later? So like, do you find that is a new, more important piece that's going into your teaching and your education now?
Yeah. So about 5 years ago, I had founded a group of companies. At this point, I mean, I've started about 30 different businesses in the fitness industry, but at that point I was leading this kind of holding company that had about 12 businesses under its roof. And I was just spread thin and not having a lot of fun. And I was actually out tossing wiffle balls to my then 3-year-old in the front yard. And I just felt this like wave of guilt. Like, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be the guy in there ringing the cash register. I've got all these employees and this massive payroll and about 275 franchisees. And then I I just took a deep breath and said, wait a minute, I'm feeling guilty about playing in the yard with my son. Something's wrong here.
Yeah.
And so it took me about, a year to kind of unwind a lot of that stuff and sell off my stake in these businesses and start anew, just with this mindset of helping people build a business that allows them to do the things they want professionally, but not at the expense of living the way they want to live personally. And so, I mean, even when I'm doing coaching meetings with those groups you alluded to, the first thing that we do to start every meeting is all the members share like the personal and professional wins from the previous quarter. And it all starts with the personal wins because, I mean, there's no sense in sitting there in this wonderful service business where you're helping everybody else improve their quality of life at the expense of your own.
Do you find, do most of them struggle with trying to find the personal first?
They did when they came in, and now I did a little survey a couple weeks ago, and, the average person had increased their time off by like 58% that's in the program. And there wasn't like, hey, you've had to be in the program this long or anything like that. It was just a collective. So even, counting the people who've been in there a month, that was our average. And I probably am more proud of that than of any of the financial metrics, because there are plenty of people who will go out there and teach them how to run themselves into the ground for more gross revenue. But, the stuff where they're getting to go take family vacations for the first time ever, or they can coach their kids' youth soccer team, those are the things that they're going to look back and remember really fondly, not that extra transformation challenge they ran this spring.
I think what just popped in my head as you were saying all this was like, isn't that what we're all supposed to be doing this for?
Yeah.
Like besides, maybe some people are looking for the praise or the recognition of building a successful business. I doubt that. If you truly are purely looking to succeed in life, and I'm only 41, but I've had to realize this over the recent years, like, why are we doing all of this? Right? It's the healthy lifestyle component, and you being a father can speak highly to that.
Yeah. You had mentioned it, so I'll touch a little bit. So my younger son, Alex, who is 8, was recently diagnosed with this, an autoimmune disease called, the acronym is PANS, pediatric, PANS, PANS. So pediatric autoimmune neuropsychotic syndrome. So basically what happens is, his body, his body, basically his immune system, whenever it's supposed to attack, something when he gets sick, like bacteria or whatever, it turns around and kind of attacks his brain. And, so he's definitely been a great reminder to us lately about, how important not only our health is, the stuff we take for granted, right? Because this kid was, going into this very much the all-American boy, kind of like good at everything.
Oh, the pops like you too.
Yeah. So he, he's just that guy. And so just seeing how this could really kind of throw a bit of a monkey wrench in that has been a big deal around our house. But beyond that, it's been, just this wonderful reminder of how great it's been to have built a business that affords me flexibility, so I can be there as much as I've needed to for the past, past couple of months. My wife's the same thing, as a business from home. But then, the other side of this that I mentioned to you was I got to really dig in and see the kind of health landscape from the mind of a consumer, a client, a patient, and understand where how people search to solve problems and understand how, the providers may struggle a little bit with conveying what they do and how they can help. So yeah, it's been a lot. So yeah, you can see a lot of the stuff on the screen share you're pulling up here. Fortunately, like I'd mentioned to you previously, Alex has kind of a milder case of this. So he's got,
But
maybe,
even influenza can affect this. I look at the infectious triggers. That's so common.
yeah, it's it's really scary because it's often very much misdiagnosed as having OCD or having some other psychological issue. And well, those things are certainly just big problems and concerns of their own. When you get to treating something, assuming it's something else, then the treatments don't really have the desired impact.
No,
So
it's funny because, not funny, but these symptoms here, right? Halfway down, deterioration in schoolwork. I can totally see an OCD thing, right? But you got sleep problems, and hallucinations. These are all not guaranteed, but obviously the oppositional behaviors, aggression, irritability. Yeah, I would expect the same. If you got swelling of the brain, wow, this is amazing.
yeah, so fortunately, he's he's probably got, maybe when this flared up, maybe 20% of those symptoms. So, but it's so common that that kids come down with almost all of those. And common but terrifying because you don't really know. It just, it literally comes on in a day.
Yeah.
So you've got this wonderful kind of all-American kind of kid that goes to school and does their homework and comes home and eats their vegetables and wants to go out and play in the yard. And the next thing you know, you see all these symptoms popping up out of the blue and you don't know where it came from. So for us, obviously, it's been a tremendous learning experience and working in the health field for, almost 2 decades. I'm probably in a better place, and my wife, who also works in the health and fitness world, we were probably in a better place than most people to go and get wonderful support and education on it and get great care for him. But it's just this huge reminder of why we need, as a parent, you got to kind of put your oxygen mask on first, right? You got to be there to take care of these kids who can't necessarily take care of themselves.
Yeah, you're the guiding force.
Yeah. So,
so this is it just reinforces everything you've been talking about today about, how are you building your business? Are you building it to be free? Are you building it to have that lifestyle balance? Because, thank goodness, obviously your son doesn't have the full blown, like all of the symptoms, because I would think that would exponentially like just blow this up even bigger as far as an impact on time commitment from you guys.
Yeah. And, I think the thing that we recognized very quickly was the flexibility that we had in our schedules, was just such a wonderful gift to be able to kind of call an audible on maybe how we would normally go about things and just say, okay, let's go and take care of him as best we can. And then for all those folks that might not necessarily want to go and sell and everything else, I will be the first to tell you that care for this sort of thing isn't cheap. And then to go to the specialists that we'd want to go to or the treatments that we would seek, none of that's covered by insurance. So
it's not mainstream enough.
No. And so, if I want what's best for my child, the best possible care, then I need to be in a position where the limiting factor is not money.
Which drives me crazy because just on that point, like this is clearly let's be real. I forget how many years it was ago, Time Magazine on the one cover of their edition had like a fire inside of the body, and they talk about the question mark, inflammation killing America or whatever. Well, let's be real. All disease can be tied to the human body's inflammatory responses. So the whole point of this, whether it's your son's condition or other conditions, is learning the root causes that triggered the inflammation, and then obviously you as parents helping researchers deeper and find, okay, what are the trigger points in my son's life or in our family's lifestyle that we can remove these inflammatory responses, whether it be an anti-inflammatory dietary practices, et cetera. I have a feeling you guys probably have dug heavily into that as well.
Yes, we've been, we're about 6 weeks into a very strict autoimmune protocol diet. So a lot of anti-inflammatory kind of steps to be taken, not only just the diet, but a lot of supplement work to improve gut health. Because even what made it worse was he had a kind of a stomach bug for about 9 days before that. So his gut was kind of already a wreck. But then, you know, what happens the first day he wants to go back to school? The teacher wants to hand out treats and chocolate and everything else. And so
sugar's fueling the fire, man. It's an inflammatory.
Yeah. So you're creating this environment there where, you know, then, you know, the kid's like, oh, wait a minute. Socially, I'm the outlier here, right? Because I can't do this. So yeah, it's been a great learning experience for us. And he is, man, he's been a champ. I mean, he's probably griped about his diet 4 times in, you know, 6-7 weeks, and even went and had a sleepover with friends, and the mom's texting say, like, he's so good at taking care of himself. He'll say, well, I can have that. I can't have that. So it's,
it sounds like he's smart enough to realize, like, wait a minute, if I've now experienced what's like when I don't do the good stuff. Yeah. And I feel like junk when the bad stuff happens. So I might want to listen to my dad and my mom and do the good stuff because I feel better.
Yeah.
Kids are smart enough. They just need the parenting to guide them.
Yeah. The parenting is definitely a big driver. And I think in his case, you know, is just understanding some things a little bit better. I mean, because what you said is absolutely right. I think a lot of kids are far brighter than we as a society give them credit for, right? Like you'll hear parents say, well, I can't really manipulate my kid's diet. They'll be upset. I'm like, man, kids don't want to feel like crap. So you can certainly influence some things and create an environment where they make better choices. That just comes down to being a parent.
Yeah. Has your son's condition ever reached the point of, like, from the brain swelling of seizures, or he's luckily been shy?
No, he's not gotten to that point. I mean, ironically enough, this first happened in fall of 2017, and we didn't really know what was going on. And by the time we kind of figured it out, it was done. Like the antibiotics had made kind of the inflammation stuff, it kind of quelched all that. And so we just thought, well, hey, you know, we kind of dodged a bullet. Maybe he was just really mild because, you know, we had talked to a couple people about it. And then it flared up worse this go around. And he missed a month of school. And,
wow.
You know, but it was just one of those things where he would get, you know, the oppositional stuff was an issue, a lot of the OCD stuff, and a little bit of the anxiety. But like with him, the OCD stuff wasn't maybe as much what we would typically associate with that. It was more clothing stuff, like sensory. So.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about this type of stuff in the past on the show because I'm good buddies with. You ever hear of Vinny Tortorich?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, I've been on his show. He's been on my show. I've been. He's one of my clients now. I helped him with his crowdfunding campaign. We're going to be bringing out this year the first documentary called Fat, a documentary. And but one of the people he decided to add into the movie was what was his name? His son's name was Charlie Abrams, but this was the famous movie producer, very successful guy who made, remember the movie Airplane?
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy. So all those types of movies, this guy did quite well for himself. But his son, part of the backstory was his son used to suffer like 30 plus seizures a day. And they were ready to operate on this kid's brain because they couldn't figure out how to stop it. And then all of a sudden his dad happened to go into the hospital library and found this book about, ketogenic therapies. And this is before keto started getting viral. But he says, wait a minute. He's like, how come you guys don't do this? And they said, yeah, that's worked in the past, but we don't do that anymore. He's like, what? But you want to operate on my young child's brain, but you don't want to try this that has worked in the past. And so he started the foundation called charliefoundation.org. And we put him in the movie because of just what he did. And if you haven't looked at it, it's amazing. I mean, I had no idea a kid could survive that many seizures in one day, let alone the kid is now grown and he's lucky if he gets a seizure a day nowadays. So powerful, but it's all about whether you want to call it ketogenic therapies or low carb. But the whole point was removing the sugars, removing the grains from his lifestyle. Because if you know Vinny, he owns the trademark NSNG. I lived that lifestyle for years now. I just never knew. I never called it that. So I just never been a big sweet guy. So, and I never saw the purpose of bread. So I don't know if that's some of the stuff you've been researching for your son or not, but.
Yeah, we've definitely, this is kind of a twofold challenge. And I think a lot of autoimmune kind of operates this way, but I wouldn't profess to be an expert on any of it. It's, we've got to kind of put out the fire. So when he flared up, we've got to get, this flare down, we've got to get his immune system to kind of calm back down. And then it just gets back to prevention, right? I mean, good gut health and, just making sure that, the body is operating the way it's supposed to, not always having to deal with the ramifications of sugars or grains or, a lot of the processed stuff. And so, yeah.
Well, I'm sure you've learned it takes a little while, depending on the health of the gut biology and depending on what just rocked it. It might take a little bit to kind of rebuild it. Like to your point, you might be able to get in there and mitigate the flame, right? Get the fire initially extinguished, but now you have to rebuild what was damaged. So, yeah. I've never taken probiotics regularly in my life, but I know also you can't just randomly toss random ones in there. Like you might want to get a test done. Because I have friends of mine who just go to the store and buy it off the shelf and they just say, I just drink it every day. And I'm like, you have no idea what you're doing to your natural body's gut biology. You've not done any testing. You're just trusting what's coming off the shelf. Okay. I'm not on a pedestal on that one. I'm just saying, let's do some research, man. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Have you done gut biology tests on your son?
Yeah. I mean, we had a pretty extensive, panel done, and we've been very fortunate to be able to work with not only just fabulous functional medicine doctors, but then we've also got some really strong people in various corners of the health world. I mean, one of the best nutritionists in really North America, or at least on my radar worldwide, it has certainly been a lot of help. I mean, we've just got really good people that when something gets a little bit over my head, I can go to somebody who's got a little bit more depth on it than I do.
Nice. Yeah. So not to name drop another guy, but since you've been in the fitness space so long, are you familiar with the former champion bodybuilder Wade Lightheart?
No.
Oh, okay. So he's, oh God, he was back on episode 256. He's obsessed about gut biology because he was like, he went to Mr. Universe a couple of times. Like he was that level and he had no idea what he was doing. Yeah, he might've looked good, for those competitions, but he said the years of recovery that he had to go through because what excessive supplementation and everything else just thrashed his gut health and gut biology and the pain and the inflammatory responses that he suffered from that. So he's a huge advocate for anti-inflammatory practices like obviously you've been able to research for your own son. So I think that's a big wake-up call for a lot of people. Is like if your body's inflamed or you're in pain, which is what you're feeling from inflammation, there's something wrong. Your body's trying to talk to you. So.
Yeah. And I think that hopefully as an industry, we're recognizing that instead of trying to solve every problem in a localized way, right? Like, oh, my hip bothers me, my back bothers me, my knee bothers me. Maybe we need to dig a little bit more into the root cause of the issues, the systemic issues.
I don't know, Pat, that sounds very Eastern medicine. I know that's way older than our modern Western medicine. So there might be some truth to that, but maybe, maybe we're crazy right now. But I'm a huge supporter of what you just said. Because I'm anti-pharmaceutical. I'm like, I tell people all the time, I've had scientists on the show. I've had best-selling doctors and authors, and just like Vinny on his show. And the biggest thing we try and preach to people is like, just listen, because pharmaceuticals are just, I like to call them a pharmaceutical Band-Aid. It's a temporary fix. You haven't found the root cause. So, yeah. I mean, granted, in January, I accidentally created a spontaneous pneumothorax, partial collapse in my left lung. I definitely appreciated some of the minor painkillers that I agreed to finally let them give me. That wouldn't let them give me any of the oxy stuff. So I did take a few medicines temporarily while I was recovering from surgery, and then got off of it ASAP. So there is a time and a place, for things like that. Granted, 35% of the collapse of the lung, you might want to take something. I don't know.
Seems like a good choice, yes.
Yeah, So, well, listen, this has been a great show. I don't want to take any more time out of your night. I appreciate what you have exponentially done in your career, sir. I mean, the books, the trainings you're offering. I'm a huge advocate for fitness entrepreneurs because, as I hinted earlier in the show, I've just seen so many that I know struggle, and then they keep doing the whole, oh, well, I don't want to spend the money, so I'll just figure it out on my own. And I'm like, guys, like, the reason why there's experts out there, like, reach out. It's okay. And it's a write-off, for God's sakes. Like, this, if you're looking for a new business expense, spend it on education. Yeah. If you're trying to build a sustainable business that eventually can free you. So, and thank you again for sharing the story of your son. I hope things are going to, knowing you, things are going to continue to improve, and it's going to be great. So, and he's how old now?
He is 8. So he's 8 and probably thinks and acts like a teenager. So a little scary combination, but yeah, he's
at 8.
Oh yeah.
That's scary, actually. Yes. Because I know what I was like as a teenager. I can't picture that at 8. This is why I'm not a father. Well, listen, I do want to bring the show to a close. I want to give you a proper goodbye off the air, but I will tell you, all of my guest co-hosts get to help close the show out. And actually, before I have you give us your final words and how you want to leave behind a final message or how you want to sum it all up, I do love the quote you shared when we booked you. I want to share that for our listeners. One of his favorite quotes he listed was, "If you do what you said you were going to do each day, then you will get what you said you were going to get." So think about that. But now, back to you, sir. How would you like to close out our show?
Well, I would like to think that, we cover a lot of ground here, but if you're in the entrepreneurial world, or even if you're just somebody who wants to be a high achiever in your career, professional and personal success aren't mutually exclusive things. You can have them both, but you're probably not going to have them both by accident. So you need to plan, and you need to make sure that you just, are moving towards those goals each and every day. If you do that, be pretty amazed about what you can accomplish.
I totally agree. And if I could add on one thing, the guy's got fitness background. Let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I've been in the sales and marketing space for a long time. Some of the most successful sales and marketing professionals I work with, especially sales, have some type of fitness background or have worked with coaches or people with fitness background. Just giving you a little hint. They just seem to tie so well together. Could be that competitive spirit. I don't know. Well, listen, hang tight. I want to give you a proper goodbye off the air. I'm going to do one last screen share, ladies and gentlemen, because quick reminder on his site, it is his name, Pat Rigsby, R-I-G-S-B as in boy, Y. And don't forget to scroll down on his site. You can also score a free copy of The Path, which is his free copy off of his website of a book. So dig into that, because The Path is the story of a fitness business owner who is struggling, and stress, burnout, financial challenges have pushed him to a crossroads of deciding whether he'll ever have the business success he's seeking. So kind of basically what this whole episode was about. So thanks for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen. We're here to fuel your health, your business, your lifestyle. Pat definitely did that for us today. And remember, you too can live the fuel. And we'll talk to you guys again soon.